Good morning, everyone. We begin the press conference between the Prime Minister Ingrida Šimonytė and the European Commissioner for the Internal Market, Thierry Bretonu. We begin with Prime Minister's statement. Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm glad to welcome the European Commissioner for the Internal Market, Thierry Bretonu, to Vilnius for the third time, and to have the opportunity to discuss with him the issues that are the most concerning to all the Europeans, those of security and industrial issues. Every time that we meet with the Commissioner, we discuss some very important challenges. At the beginning of the work of the government, it was COVID and related issues, and our response and our capabilities to quickly react. Today, it is Ukraine, of course, the war in Ukraine, which is heroically holding the front line in very difficult conditions, defending its freedom while protecting Europe from further expansion of Russian aggression. It seems as if we are all well aware that we cannot defeat Russia's predatory war machine with our bare hands. Unfortunately, the Ukrainians are receiving only a fraction of the weapons and support that we have already agreed even, as well as financial support which is still being discussed in the European Council, or military support which is discussed in the US Congress. Well, partly that is because of a lack of political will, but also partly due to practical capabilities. And that's why the European Commission initiatives on European military industry are very important. And the acknowledgement that the European Union, which was created as a phenomenal peace project, for it to remain such, it has to fight for that possibility, and that fight has to be not only rhetorical but also practical as well. And Europe has to strengthen its military complex. The next month, the European Commission and Commissioner will introduce the strategy, which should involve specific proposals to boost cooperation, to cooperate, to encourage innovation, and a simple production in the European Union's defense sector. Our priority, our understanding is that this strategy should be oriented towards the drastically changed security situation. And it creates huge new challenges to Europe, because the situation at the European Union's border is different from what it was 5 or 10 years ago. And so we have to be prepared to quickly react to various crises, including military ones. So the strategy must lead us to the long-term development of critical defense capabilities, production and stockpiling, and the development of new technologies, which we see when we look at the situation at the front line. We see that technologies and innovations are a very important part of war. To Lithuania, it is very important that the decisions that are made by implementing the strategy, it should involve decisions to facilitate procedures, to involve smaller industry or smaller states into the supply chain. This is important in areas where smaller companies, startups, some new ideas can suggest their component of a solution for a larger military industry. So it is important for those small businesses to be involved. And we also, during our meeting, discussed that a serious priority for the next few months is to support Ukraine in any way, shape or form that we can, to agree on all the solutions that are critical to Ukraine, and also to strengthen our defense and security continuously, like the Baltic states are doing for many years now. Thank you very much for your visit, Commissioner, and the floor is yours.
I would like to thank you very much, Prime Minister, for your welcome once again in a crisis situation. I would like to reiterate what you said, Prime Minister, if you allow me. Yes, we are in a crucial moment for our collective security in Europe. And in the war of aggression run by Russia in Ukraine, Europe must and will continue to support Ukraine with all it means, and especially, of course, on the military front. And this is, of course, my message here today. But we need to ensure that Europe takes more and more its security in its own hands. Our security cannot depend on the elections result outside of Europe. And for this, we need to adapt our defense industry very quickly, as we already started to do, to this new security paradigm. And this means, of course, producing more, faster, and together. And this is what I wanted to discuss, of course, here in Lithuania. And I started a new defense tour, and I started this defense tour, Mrs. Prime Minister, here in Lithuania, because I know, of course, your commitment and that you are rightly concerned with the situation, and we are here, of course, to support. This is also why we will present at the end of February a European defense industrial strategy. And I think it's important to have this new European defense strategy and program. It will come, of course, with programs, also with money to support joint acquisitions and increase at the same time our defense production capacity. I really think that availability in time and in volume of defense equipment is now also a question of competitiveness and, of course, of security in Europe. This is what I wanted to start to discuss in Vilnius today. I will continue my tour in other countries, but I am happy to see that, of course, we are, Mr. Prime Minister, exactly on the same page. The one who believe that because we are, of course, in 2024, in a special year of elections, and that we will be focused only on elections and not on our security, are wrong. We will continue to accelerate our support to Ukraine. We will continue to accelerate our capacity to increase our defense production here in Europe, because it's a matter of our own security. Thank you.
Questions from media? Hello, Milda Vilikanskytė from Lithuanian National Radio and Television. I'll have a question for both of you, but first of all for the Commissioner. So Politico, the journal, quoted you last week about an efforts for European Union to create a general European military fund which could exceed 100 billion euros. So how do you understand this common fund? According to the size of economies of countries, according to the GDP, could this fund act only for the needs of European Commission members, or could it be used to support Ukraine as well?
Well, yes, you're right. I mentioned last week in a discussion what we should do in the future to continue, on one hand, to increase our production capacity for the next 5 years, and also to continue to guarantee and to secure our support to Ukraine in its defense needs. That's, of course, for the next 5 years. And we believe that, yes, this is a kind of envelope that we need to discuss together. We will have, if we all agree politically that it is absolutely mandatory, we will find a way to finance it like we did during the other crisis we had to cope with the RRF of something like this. President Macron was also expressed himself on this issue. We know that if there is, let's say, a political will on this, and I think Prime Minister Kallas also mentioned it, we will find a way. RRF is a good example. But that's, of course, for the next 5 years, and we are working hard on this. And the defense industry strategy that we will present at the end of the month of February will pave the way. But in between, we have 2024. And this is why also I wanted to discuss this with the Prime Minister to see how we can accelerate in 2024, maybe with other tools, and I know that it will be a discussion, I believe, in the next European Council on this very issue, because we cannot afford, and we will not do that, to miss 2024 and wait 2025. We need at the same time, with our existing tools, or maybe with some additional tools, support dedicatedly, specifically 2024, and then, of course, start to work with the kind of goal that I gave for 2025 and ahead.
Prime Minister, the war began in Ukraine in 2014, and almost 2 years ago, a full-scale invasion began. And now we're talking about the need of European Union to strengthen its defense and support Ukraine. Are these plans not too late? I mean, plans about a common military complex. You see, the story is a very long story, and I would have to talk for a long time about it to come to some sort of a conclusion. You know perfectly well that even earlier than 2014, an invasion into Crimea began, rather Crimean occupation and annexation of eastern Ukraine. And the Baltic states have been claiming for a long time strongly that Russian imperial ambitions are not gone. And before the annexation took place, there were some doubts, even someone were even making fun of us, telling us that we missed an opportunity to remain silent, that we missed an opportunity to deal with our historical traumas. So of course we could have done something back then even, but I think there's not much value in trying to find out right now who was wrong back then. Historians and analytics will do that in time, but for us as decision makers right now, we have to ask ourselves what could we do now and what we have to do now. And for Europe it is important not only that there is a hot war happening right on our doorstep in a country which was just invited to begin negotiation for its membership in the EU, so in the space that we understand as a common space, but also the fact that the security situation in the world is changing rapidly. And so here we're discussing specific industrial questions with the Commissioner. Why our industry can't start so fast? Because the industry has to believe that governments have a serious view towards the defense, not only right now, that we won't only support Ukraine for the short term, stock up our supplies, and in 2 or 3 years we'll come back to 1.5% of GDP or 0.6% of GDP. So until the industry doesn't see this commitment as a serious commitment, a long-term commitment, it will be hard to start the engine and start to support our own internal industry, not buy equipment from third parties. And I'm talking not only about the Baltic states, but about the states of the whole EU. So I believe that the strategy which was proposed by the Commissioner will help us do that, because right now the banks are not financing projects because they are financially risky, because you don't know when the new politicians will come and say that defense is not important, it's more important to pay pensions from those funds. So we need to have a consensus that everyone believes each other, that no one will blink. We haven't achieved it yet, but we're on a correct path, because during NATO summit there was a decision on 2% GDP funding, and I think that countries are taking serious steps right now, and it poses a serious signal to the industry that you can trust governmental contracts. It won't have to put funds forward for the whole project for European security. So that's a short response to a serious question. TV3 News, I would like to ask, is it better when the separate states support Ukraine, or when it's better when the support is presented by the whole European institutions? So I'll begin to answer the question. Maybe the Commissioner will add something professionally. So I think that both paths are very important, because each of them has their own advantages. It's very beautiful, very important morally to show a big contribution, for example, by the Baltic states, that they support Ukraine by a large portion of their GDP. But the scale is more important. Ukraine is a large country with huge military needs. So European peace tool is a tool for our countries that spend a lot of GDP percentage-wise, but nominally those sums do not achieve trillions of euros. They're still relatively small compared to the percentage of GDP from Germany or France or larger economies. So when the funds are collected in such a fund, this fund can allow us to contribute to serious goals. So it might hide the bilateral support by the countries, and the ratings are not seen, the critique is unpleasant then. But I think that we shouldn't look at the personal support, we shouldn't look for explanations, we should look for tools that are efficient. And so this tool, I think, is very important for us in the Baltic states, where we can add to scale support.
Maybe if you allow me to add my personal comment on this. Of course, bilateral aid is important, as the Prime Minister said, but we learned something during all the crises that we had to cope with. We are stronger together. Mm-hmm. And there is not one single country which could support Ukraine in its own needs. Not one single one. This is why we believe that we have this dual approach. This is why we have already very important instruments, like, for example, the European Peace Facility, which allow all member states to participate and to make stronger our collective support to Ukraine. And of course, in the strategy that I will present, I will propose, of course, to the member states how to be stronger, working together for, of course, the support of Ukraine, but also at large. We need to understand that in the actual world, we need also to increase collectively our defense readiness, our capacity to produce more and faster, and also to help, while doing this, to change the mindset and business model of the European defense industry. putting them, helping them to go a little bit now in this, just for this industry economy of war mode, but also allowing them to increase their capacity, not waiting for contract, but understanding that yes, as the Prime Minister said, we will increase our spendings because we will be all together at 2% of GDP spendings, so we will have this visibility, but we need to help to transition from one era. It was a time where we thought it was appropriate to benefit from the so-called dividend of peace. This time is over. This time is over. Now we are entering into a new world. And in this new world, yes, we need to spend at least 2% of our GDP in defense, and we will do it better if we do it together.
Giedrius Gaidamavičius from BMS. January, not only the defense strategy will be proposed, but also the support package for Ukraine of 50 billion euros will be introduced. So do you trust that European leaders will manage to find a consensus of the support? Will they be able to convince Hungary to support this package, or can we come to an agreement without Hungary? So an agreement is possible because all the other member states support completely and they see the situation in the same way, except for Hungary. But no one gave up as of yet, and we are putting a lot of work into it. We are discussing, looking for solutions to achieve a 27-state solution, because all the other solutions and decisions which are possible through some special schemes or agreements, they would be non-optimal. They would show difference in opinions, which we wouldn't want to have in the EU, regardless of reasons and interests of the member states. It is very important to come to a unanimous decision which would be made by 27 member states. And I hope that European leaders will have enough wisdom to come to such a conclusion.
But of course, this is Europe. We listen, and then we find ways together. So I trust that we will find a way, like always.
Ačiū Ministrė pirmininkė, ačiū komisarė.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.